Well, guys, All Blacks vs Wallabies. What a cracking test match in Wellington. Look, in this video, firstly I'm going to cover a review of both halves. I'm going to review both teams at the end, and then finally I'm going to analyse some key players and players to watch from both teams. Look, that first half, wowee, the Wallabies came out to play, didn't they, guys? They were relentless and brutal on attack in that first 20 minutes. Firstly, the 3 minutes in, there was a pretty well executed switch play, wasn't there, and a kick. And then, look, that duff chance by Jake Gordon, like he tried to scoop the ball. He should have just dived on the ball and he probably would have scored then, guys. So, yeah, tough at test match level, but eventually Fraser McWright scored a pretty good try in the 8th minute, a good pushover try to the Wallabies. And yeah, the Wallabies really put some pressure on the All Blacks, didn't they? Eventually, the All Blacks responded with a pretty good turnover to Ardie Savea, a breakaway to Anton Leonard-Brown, who did a pretty good pass to Sevu Reece, a well-finished try, and another pretty good try to Will Jordan, a well-executed play where he just hits that gap, and another second try to the All Blacks. Probably for me, though, the killer punch of that first half was just before half-time. A penalty advantage to the All Blacks, and then a number of phases, and then Caleb Clarke hits a really good line and a really good third try to the All Blacks, taking the score to 19-13 at half-time. So that was a brutal blow against the Wallabies, and you definitely got the feeling that if the Wallabies were winning 13-12 at half-time rather than losing 19-13, it could have been a completely different ball game. So fine margins at test matches, isn't it, guys? So still though, 19-13 at halftime, I still thought the game was definitely in the balance and could still go either way. But ultimately, the All Blacks came out and they were much better in that second half, weren't they? They certainly applied a lot more pressure on attack. And look, eventually it led to a pretty good try to Mighty Williams. And then probably the killer punch of the match was that 64th minute try to Caleb Clarke. Yeah, a good well-executed play. Damien McKenzie running a line out the back door, passing it to Caleb, hitting accelerating onto the ball, hitting a good line and momentum taking Caleb Clarke over. So full-time score 33 points to 13 to the All Blacks. A good win in the end, but I think probably the scoreline doesn't reflect probably how close the game actually was, and particularly in that second half. Look, chances, Harry Wilson knocked the ball on, Fraser McWright held up over the line, two chances like that, and as well as the Jake Gordon missed opportunity in the first 3 minutes, and say 21 points in the game's a completely different ball game, isn't it? So yeah, a good one of the All Blacks, but definitely a tougher game than what it reflects, I believe. Looking at the Wallabies, at the start, they were so dangerous on attack, weren't they, guys? Like, they put so much pressure on the All Blacks, just their relentless phase play and their ball carries. They were brutal at the start, weren't they? And look, I thought ultimately the Wallabies' defence was also much, much better. The All Blacks didn't get anywhere near as many opportunities as they did in the Sydney game. They were up in the All Blacks' face. They made their first up tackles better. They were physical, and I thought they challenged the All Blacks at the breakdown much more and much more effectively in this Wellington test than they did in the Sydney test. So tough night for the Wallabies. They'll be disappointed, but guys, and let me know your thoughts on this. I definitely think the Wallabies are trending in the right direction. I actually think they're going to be a scary, scary side under Joe Schmidt. What that brilliant coach is capable of achieving is genuinely scary. Leading up to the test, there's a lot of talk about the Wallabies just not having the cattle to be a contending international side. So they arguably don't have the cattle of other international sides like the Springboks and maybe England and the All Blacks. But I still think what they put out there tonight, the cattle that they had there in that test, with the things and the plays that they can execute under Joe Schmidt, I think they're well capable of being a genuinely world-class contending side, aren't they? I actually do believe the Wallabies are going to surprise some teams on that end of year tour as well, guys. With the players they have, the plays that Joe Schmidt will get them executing, I think they might upset a few teams. So watch the space, guys, and let me know your thoughts on that. To the All Blacks, yeah, look, they didn't have the best start. There was a few soft penalties given away, really, in that sort of first 20 minutes. But you know, when they got into the game, look, I genuinely thought the All Blacks attack execution was the best I've seen it all season. Particularly finishing, you know, there's 3 tries in the first half where they didn't get a lot of opportunities, but they finished them well. Particularly that try to Sever Reece with a very well executed pass by Anton Leonard-Brown. I just thought the finishing and execution was much better by the All Blacks tonight. Also, look, leading into the test, guys, there was a lot of talk about the Sydney test being more of a Super Rugby style test match and very loose and not really respectful of a genuine test match. I thought this game was much tighter and much more accurate. The All Blacks did apply a lot more pressure and do the basics much better in the game, which was a lot more pleasing to see. And ultimately, I think that's what they need to be doing at test match level. Building the pressure, executing plays, and accumulating points where possible. So, have they turned a page? Well, time will tell, and we'll certainly know more on the All Blacks end of year tour. The All Blacks defence, look, I thought it was pretty good tonight, wasn't it? Certainly their attitude, the way they came up, they made their tackles, and particularly at the end, you know, the number of phases and pressure that the Wallabies put on them, you know, to stop knock on to Harry Wilson, you know, was great defensive work by the All Blacks overall. So, a number of positives there. But, you know, guys, the big question from me, and let me know your thoughts on this, you know, is this the game that the All Blacks have finally turned a leaf and are going to start executing plays and do the basics much better and now be the side that they're capable of being? Guys, let me know your thoughts on that. But yeah, definitely a much better executed sort of game strategy today. Players for me from both sides. Look, the first one was Beauden Barrett, and guys, let me know your thoughts on him at 10. He's very different to Damian McKenzie, isn't he? As expected. And look, I said to my wife, you know, you could just see in basically that first 10 minutes a completely different sort of attacking style by the All Blacks, you know. Much less flashy. Didn't get the opportunities like they did with Damian McKenzie just cutting oppositions up. But the big thing I thought with Beauden at 10 was that backline, it looked like it was running as a unit rather than running with individuals attacking, which I thought was how they were operating in the Sydney test with Damian there. I thought, look, Beauden Barrett, I thought, look, and this was probably expected. It was his first test starting at first 5, so I thought his game management was probably a little bit lacking at times. Just the execution, but again, his first test at first 5, you're going to expect that. So guys, let me know your thoughts on Beauden Barrett at 10 compared to Damian. Secondly, look, Will Jordan. Wow, he's really finding some form, isn't he? Look, he was just his raw speed and just his timing and connections with other players was fantastic. The way he hit gaps, really finding form. Finally, for the All Blacks, look, you've got to mention Sam Cane. You know, kudos to the man. You've got to respect what he's done for the All Blacks legacy. 100 tests, what he's been through, and the hardships he's encountered, and to come out the other side. Look, he's an absolute champion for All Black rugby, isn't he? So you got to acknowledge that, guys. To the Wallabies, look, Fraser McWright, he was world class, wasn't he? Look, he's a genuine fetcher, isn't he? The turnovers he won, his ball carriers were strong. Look, that try he got was really good, wasn't it? Really good body height, driving over the line. Yeah, he's a real player for the future, isn't he, Fraser McWright? The other one I thought was good was Noah Lolesio. Now, I just really like his game management. You know, I just thought he did the basics well. I thought he kicked well. His defense was good. And I just think that, you know, he's a player that's developing nicely. But again, guys, I go back to the Wallabies. I just think a lot of their combinations are developing really nicely. Like, you look at their back 3, you know, their first 5, second 5 centre. even, their back row, 6, 7, 8. I just feel they're developing some really good combinations and some really world-class players. So there's certainly going to be a dangerous side in the coming years under Joe Schmidt, guys, and some real positives for the Wallabies. Whew, let me get my breath back. What a brutal test match. Congratulations to the All Blacks, and certainly the Wallabies are definitely moving in the right direction. Guys, let me know your thoughts on the match, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and add any further comments you thought about the match. Cheers.